so excited to be bringing this pot holder bundle to you. I've made a ton of cute versions and they're perfect gifts, which is why I don't have them all here today because I've gifted them away to different people. But the pattern is completely free. You can find it linked down below. And if you'd rather grab it through Etsy to support my business, you can do that for less than the price of coffee, linked down below. Now without further ado, let's get straight into it.
We're going to start by preparing our pattern pieces. You can either tape them together with the print at home file like I am, or you can use one of the other two files, which is a projector file for at-home projectors, or a large format file, which you would have printed at a copy shop. All of these are great options, it just depends on your personal preference. Once all your pattern pieces are cut out, it's time to talk about fabric, and then we're going to cut it out. For the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to be using the heart-shaped pattern, so this is what we're going to be working off of, but all of these are pretty much the exact same construction. First up, we've got bias binding, which is going to bind the edges of the fabric. This is something that you can purchase pre-made like I have, or you can make it out of your main fabric. Next, we have our main fabric, which needs to be made out of a natural fiber like cotton or linen. This one is 100% cotton. If you end up using something that's synthetic, it's likely that the fabric is actually going to melt when you use your pot holder, which is definitely not what we want. Since I'm using a pattern that has this pocket piece, I'm going to use this other fabric that is also 100% cotton. If I wanted to, I could make it all out of one fabric, but this is just a design detail that I wanted. Next up, we have 100% cotton batting, which again needs to be made out of 100% natural fibers and nothing that's synthetic, otherwise it can melt inside of the pot holder. We're also going to need one layer of this insole bright that's going to be inside of the pot holder, and that's going to make it heat resistant. So let's start by cutting out our main pot holder piece. We're gonna need 2 layers of this, so I'm gonna cut it on the fold. I'm not actually going to cut out the heart shape. I'm gonna leave space on either side, and we're going to quilt all of these pieces together before we cut out this heart shape. Now we're gonna cut out this same size square out of the insole bright and the cotton batting. We need 1 layer of each. This really doesn't have to be super precise because we're going to cut off the excess later anyways. Now that all of those pieces are cut out, we are also going to cut out our pocket pieces. We're again going to need 2 of these, so I'm going to cut them on the fold. Now that all of our pieces are cut, we are going to focus on the main piece, and we're going to quilt all of these pieces together. What we need to do is make a quilt sandwich. So I'm going to have 1 of these layers on the bottom, 1 of these layers on the top, and then in between we have our cotton batting and our insole bright. So that is going to get sandwiched like this. And now you can see we have the outer layer, the 2 inner layers, and that bottom layer. What I want to do now is quilt all of these pieces together, and we can do whatever kind of lines we want. We can do straight lines, we can do a crosshatch situation, we can do some squiggly lines. It is totally up to you. I'm going to be using this little tool that's called a Hera marker. It basically just like makes lines that are visible for me, but they're going to wash away or you won't see them after we're done sewing. This isn't necessary. You could absolutely freehand this, or you could also use a water erasable pen. So I'm just going to do this. It might be hard for you to see, but I can see it pretty clearly, and this is the guide that I'm going to use to sew those lines. I think I'm going to make mine 2 inches apart from each other, but this is totally up to you. Now that all my lines are drawn on, I'm going to put some pins through here just to make sure that none of these layers shift around while I'm sewing. Now we're simply going to sew on top of all of those lines that we drew. Our quilt sandwich is looking amazing from the top and the bottom. Now we're just going to take out all of these pins. Next up, we're going to take our piece, put it down where we want, and cut it out. Next up, we're going to prepare our pocket pieces. They are going to end up like this, but we need to hem these edges first, so we're gonna fold them under twice and then we're going to top stitch them. I'm gonna do this over at my ironing machine so that it's nice and crisp. Now that our pocket pieces are prepped, you'll see that there's a little bit of tail here. We're just going to snip that tail off. We'll do that on both sides. And then we are going to lay our pieces right on top so that they match up with the edges here. Now we're going to sew around this perimeter with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, basically just really close to the edge here to hold those pockets in place. You can use pins to hold these down, but I'm actually going to use clips just because we have so much thickness here that clips are going to be easier to take on and off. Now that those pockets are in place, it is time to work on the little tab that you can hang this pot holder off of. We're going to be using pre-made bias tape. Again, you can totally make your own. Basically, it's just a strip of fabric that's cut on the diagonal of the grain, and then you fold it like this, and then like this. So it's folded in fourths. That way you can bind the entire edge and nothing raw will be showing. Bias tape is also made in a way that's kind of stretchy, which allows it to stretch over curves. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is take our bias tape and we're going to want to cut about a 5-inch strip off of it. So that's going to look something like this. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold it so that the raw edges are on the inside, and I'm going to sew this edge closed. And again, what this is going to become is that little holder piece that'll go in the corner or really wherever you want it to go. That way this pot holder can easily hang. All right, so here's our little strip prepared. Now we're going to fold it like this, and we are going to pin it to a corner. You can have it hang from really wherever you want. I'm just going to do mine in this corner because I like it there. And again, I'm going to use pins instead of clips just because we're going through a lot of fabric here. And I'm simply going to sew this in place again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now on to the last major step, which is to bias bind the edge of this fabric. I'm gonna grab my bias tape and I'm just going to kind of figure out how much I need. They're pretty small pieces, so if you buy pre-made bias tape, you'll only really need like 1 pack. So we're gonna do a little rough cut here. I'm going to cut it off right there, and then we're gonna start bias binding. So I think I want to flip this over like this, and we can start and stop really wherever we want, but we're gonna go around this perimeter and we're going to sew in that first crease here. Then basically what's gonna happen is we're going to fold it over like this, and then again like this, and then we're going to top stitch this part down, and that is going to bind the entire outer edge. Now once we get to that overlap, we're going to want to pull the edge backwards and then continue sewing straight over it by about 1 inch.
All right, our heart is halfway bound, and I just need to snip off some excess here, and then we're gonna roll over that edge. So let's start with this section here. You can see I folded this back so that there's no raw edge at that overlap. And then what we're gonna do is we are going to open this binding all of the way on both sides, and then we're going to fold it in together. That way, when we fold this binding over and we pin it down on the other side, it's gonna look nice and clean. And we are just going to fold the binding over all the way around. You might notice when doing this that when you fold it over, it doesn't go all the way to that seam line. If that's the case, it's just because there are so many layers in here that we might want to trim it down a little bit, and that's totally okay. So feel free to trim as you go. Just make sure you don't accidentally cut off of the binding. So I'm going to hold the binding out of the way, and then I'm just going to trim this down a little bit, and then let's try trimming it a tiny bit more. And let's see how that works now. When I pull it over, yeah, now it goes over nice and easy. So we're basically just gonna do that all the way around until it's nice and bound. Now we're just going to top stitch that binding all the way around. You can choose to do that from this side or from this side. It is totally up to you. Yay, your pot holder is looking beautiful. The last step is just to press this little piece up and top stitch it in place. That way it hangs nice. It's not something you need to do. If you'd prefer for it to hang this way, you can absolutely do that. But I like to push this up and then just top stitch it in place. Congratulations, your pot holder hot pad is looking beautiful from the back and the front, and it is officially finished. I hope you enjoyed this free pattern as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Please tag me if you made it. I would love to see it, and I will see you in the next one.